Right, once again, welcome everybody to part 2 of the Cape Bird Club's Beginners course. I just want to quickly say, if you can quickly grab yourselves a piece of paper and a pencil, because at the end there will be a little quiz and you will need to write very briefly the names of some birds that I'm going to test you on after this presentation. Now, when starting on bird watching, it is a good idea to start with water birds, and we're going to be discussing water birds this evening. Water birds tend to be easy to see because they sit on the ponds, they swim, they're on the dams and lakes, and they don't fly away and hide. Of course, there are some of them that do disappear into the reeds, but generally you see them in quite large numbers. So it's a very rewarding place to start is with water birds. And as you know, we are all going to go to the Strandfontein Birding section of the False Bay Nature Reserve, and that used to be the Strandfontein Sewerage Works. Now, sewage settling ponds attract water birds because of the nutritious food source that they have in the water, and then the habitat is perfect for birds. There's shallow water, deep water, there are reeds, there are trees, there are muddy shorelines for them to run across and probe in the mud for. And these particular sewage works, ex-sewage works, the settling ponds that were, attract flamingos, pelicans, a variety of ducks, as well as herons and many other species. So it is, although it sounds terrible that it's a sewage work, it really is a really beautiful place to be. Why isn't this working? Oh, there we go. Right, sorry about that. Now, this is an aerial photograph of the wagon wheel of settling ponds that can be found right next to Sekufle. That's where the sewage works is. In the photograph, you can see Strandfontein Beach and Baden-Powell Road runs along here. And when you're driving along that road, you don't see this. There are dunes over here, and you cannot see over those dunes, and you absolutely are unaware that this place actually exists. I think it is one of Cape Town's hidden treasures. And I suggest, I put up the website here on the slide, but it will of course also be in your notes. And I suggest that you click on that website and go and have a look. It's the Cape Bird Club's website, but there are some lovely videos all about the settling ponds and what birds can be seen there. It's well worth a visit. So now I'm going to introduce about 41 of the birds commonly seen at Strandfontein. And if you are a brand new birder, you might find it difficult to remember their names at first, but please don't panic. When I was a young teacher at Heather Howell's school, I had to, along with my colleagues, do a birding course, which Heather would facilitate in the beginning, and we would do the classroom work. I think I told you that yesterday or the day before, Tuesday. Well, after we had seen the slideshow, I was very excited about this. I loved seeing these things, and we were going to do the test, and I thought, wow. And I failed dismally. The only bird I got right was the yellow-billed duck. So don't feel bad if you don't do well. You will eventually, especially after the outing and you start visiting places where the birds are, when you see them in real life, then the names seem to stick. Now we're going to begin with my favorite, the yellow-billed duck. It was the only bird I knew when I started birding. The yellow-billed duck is 62 centimeters from the tip of its bill to the tip of its tail. Remember, we discussed how you measure a bird. Its markings are dark brownish gray and mottled. Its bill is bright yellow with a black saddle. You can see the black saddle just behind the reeds there. And it's got a little black tip at the end of the bill as well. It's very distinctive. You really can't miss the yellow-billed duck. It's a very sociable bird, and it's often found in big groups, except during the mating season when the male and the female go off on honeymoon, and you would then just see them in pairs. It's found in fresh water in fairly open country and feeds by dabbling for mainly plant food, and it also eats insect larvae and snails. So that's your first bird, the yellow-billed duck. This duck also has an iridescent green speculum, and that is what it looks like. You can't always see it, but this bird obliged nicely and posed with its beautiful speculum showing. Now, this is also a duck, but we call it a teal, and a lot of small ducks are called teals. It's not migratory, but it does move opportunistically with the rain. The males and the females are similar, but the juveniles don't have quite such a pink bill. They're little grey birds, motley, and the little pink bill is diagnostic, sort of more or less plain grey head and red eye, and they dabble and feed on plant and animal material that includes water plants, plankton, crustaceans, and tadpoles. And they also have a speculum, and it's the color teal, the teal green, teal blue color, and that's why they are named teals. All teals have got that color in their speculum. And the Cape teal is a small duck of only 46 centimeters, I beg your pardon. This is also a teal. These two beautiful birds are red-billed teals, and they will also fly a great distance to find suitable waters, and during the breeding season they will also be in pairs or in small flocks. This teal is different from the Cape teal in that its head is very distinctive with its dark cap and its creamy cheeks, like chocolate and cream together. Very pretty bird, and he is 43 centimeters to 48 centimeters, the red-billed teal. So all of those so far are quite easy, with your yellow-billed duck, your Cape teal, and your red-billed teal. And here comes another teal, and this teal is the smallest of the three teals. It's called a blue-billed teal, and it is 33 to 36 centimeters. And it's not seen all that often at Strandfontein, although I have heard news that it's there at the moment. So perhaps it'll wait to greet us next Sunday. The blue-billed teal breeds year-round, depending on rainfall, and stays in small groups or pairs. And you will see it's also got that two-toned head like the red-billed teal, but this one has a blue bill, so it's called a blue-billed teal. It's omnivorous and prefers smaller, shallow bodies of water, and it feeds with its bill submerged while swimming. It will also dabble. Food includes aquatic insects, algae, and frogs. And we'll go on to some bigger ducks. This duck is called a Cape shoveler, and if you have a look at its bill, you will see that it's got a rather big spatulate bill. Adults have speckled grey-brown plumage and dull orange legs. Now, we have mom and dad here, and they are a little bit different. They're almost the same, but they're a little bit different in that the male has the yellow or orange eye, and the female just has a brown eye. And also, I'll show you in a photograph in a minute how their speculum is a little different, or their feathers around the speculum. But I'll first tell you what they eat. The Cape shoveler feeds also by dabbling for plant food, often swinging its bill from side to side to strain the food from the water. This bird also eats mollusks and insects, and he's 53 centimeters. Now, here you can see the male, and he's different. The female doesn't have this blue in the wing. She has a gray wing, and then he also has a border, a white border, and then the speculum. So this white border separates the speculum from the blue feathers over there. He's rather a handsome fellow with these beautiful orange legs. And he's called a Cape Shoveler. I'll just put his name up. Oh, his name was up. Okay. Sorry, I'm getting distracted here. Then we have, this bird is called a southern pochard. Think of poached eggs. A southern pochard has a red eye. He's got a lovely chestnut head and brown plumage with a purplish sheen. His eyes are red and his bill is a pale blue. It prefers to swim in fairly deep fresh water, and they eat aquatic plants, invertebrates, and small fish. So that's your southern pochard, and he is 51 centimeters, so quite a big duck. Now, the southern pochard is dimorphic, which means the female is quite different. So don't be confused if you see a bird that looks like that and you think, what on earth is it? It is simply the female of the southern pochard. And what's distinctive about her is the C shape starting under the eye and coming down to the neck. Otherwise, she's quite dull brown, a grey bill rather than a blue bill. And here you can see she's got her little chickies for following her. Rather beautiful. So that's the female southern pochard. I'm just going to take a sip of water so that my voice doesn't give up on me. Now, if you see a squat duck floating low in the water, then you will know you have spotted the Makoa duck. The Makoa duck is between 48 and 51 centimeters. The breeding male Makoa has a cobalt blue bill, and it's quite a big bill. It sort of starts quite high up on its forehead, and its head and throat are completely black. The breast and back are chestnut. The tail and feet are black. Makoas are often found swimming in the water with their tail feathers cocked upwards, and that's also quite a diagnostic feature of this bird. First of all, the blue bill, the cobalt blue bill, and that black head, and the fact that it swims low in the water and cocks its tail upward. It's quite a distinctive looking bird. You could even recognize that from quite a distance. Now, his wife is quite different, and he looks very much like her in the non-breeding season too. And that's what she looks like, just a duller version of her husband, and she doesn't have the cobalt blue bill, but rather a grayish black bill. Now we're going to talk about another two birds which are neither duck nor goose. They're sort of somewhere in between, and they are classified as Anatidae. That's the scientific name for them, but we won't go into that too much. They're not true geese, but are more goose-like in appearance and behavior, and they're bigger than your normal duck. Anatidae include geese, ducks, and swans that occur on all the world's continents except for Antarctica. Here we have the South African shell duck, and this is the male, and that is the female. Usually the males of the species are more decorative, but in this case, your female has a gray head and a white face, and the male just has the gray head. They're both rather beautiful, and they are between 61 and 64 centimeters. They eat vegetable matter mainly, such as corn kernels, and the seedlings of grain crops like wheat and oats, and also aquatic plants. Then I'm sure that you've all come across this goose. This is the Egyptian goose. and it has a patch on its eye and on the chest, which makes it look as if though it's been shot. In Afrikaans, you would call the Egyptian goose a kolgaans, and that's because the kol is there in the middle of its chest, so that's where it gets its descriptive Afrikaans name. It is between 63 and 73 centimeters from the tip of its tail to the tip of its bill. Now, the male's quack sounds like a hiss, but the female has a louder voice, and she honks like crazy, especially when intruders are coming near her nest or near her chicks or goslings. They are often found on land. They're quite terrestrial, and they can also perch beautifully on trees, high up on trees and buildings and on overhead wires. They typically eat seeds, leaves, grasses, and plant stems, and occasionally they'll eat locusts and worms or other small animals. Until the goslings are a few weeks old and strong enough to graze, they feed largely on small aquatic invertebrates, especially freshwater plankton. The Egyptian goose was considered sacred in ancient Egypt and appears in many Egyptian artwork. Hence its name, Egyptian goose. And here you can see the male and the female. There is the male showing us his kol. He's a lovely spot that looks as if though he's been shot, and he's got a patch on his eye. The female has the same. She's slightly smaller than the male. This bird is the spur-winged goose. It is slightly bigger than the female. The males, rather, are slightly bigger than the females, and they come in at 98 centimeters. Their plumage is mostly black with green to violet iridescence. Head and neck feathers are edged brown. Face, chin, and throat might have varying amounts of white. Legs, feet, and bill are deepish pinkish red. Eyes are a dark brown, and they feed in a variety of habitats. You will often see lots of them on farmlands. You'll see them in the wetlands, in the dry grasslands, and on land they graze or they catch grubs. They dabble for food in water, so their food includes pondweed, seeds, grasses, shoots of bulrushes, bugs and beetles, and they sometimes dive for small fish as well. So quite a varied diet, very healthy. He's rather beautiful. He looks more beautiful when the sun catches his feathers and you get that iridescence. Otherwise, he can just look plain black. And that is how you would see him if he was swimming. Now we're going to talk about herons and egrets. Herons are long-legged, long-necked, freshwater and coastal birds. You will find them in freshwater and seawater. Egrets do not form a biological distinct group from herons and tend to be named differently because they are mainly white or have decorative plumes in their breeding plumage. This one here is your western cattle egret, and he's coming into his breeding plumage. So his bill is quite bright. It's normally more of a bone, light orange yellow color, and when he's breeding it tends to get a deeper orange. And then he also has like this mauvey color at the lores. The lores are between the base of the bill and under the eye, that little section of his face called the lores. And he can come in pretty, he's normally just plain white with his sort of pale yellow legs, but when he's breeding, he gets this buff or russet look on his feathers. I'll show you another picture in a minute. He's 54 centimeters, and there you can see how very brown and russet his feathers become during the breeding season. But if you see him plain white, you know it's still a cattle egret, but not in its in its breeding plumage. Another white egret, but this one has a black bill and black legs. He is the little egret, and he comes in at 64 centimeters. And take note of his feet. They are bright yellow. In the breeding season, the adult has 2 long plumes at the nape. You'll see these just 2 thin long plumes. Sometimes they're very distinctive, sometimes you can't see them. It feeds in shallow water and on land, consuming a variety of small creatures. They stalk their prey in shallow water, often running with raised wings or shuffling their feet to disturb small fish, or they may stand still and wait to ambush their prey. They eat fish, amphibians, small reptiles, and baby birds as well, sadly, as well as crustaceans, mollusks, insects, spiders, and worms. These birds, like most of the herons, tend to breed colonially, and they roost together at night as well. Then, this is the grey heron, and he is 100 centimeters. The grey heron is grey on its back and wings with a dirty white underside. The head is white with a thick black stripe from the bill to the top of the nape, which extends into plumes. The grey heron has dull brown legs and a yellow bill. They feed in shallow water or from the bank of rivers. It is not restricted to fresh water only. He will, if he's really hungry, he'll go to the salt water too, the sea. The grey heron feeds on mainly fish, but will also take small mammals, insects, mollusks, juvenile birds, and of course frogs. Small fish are swallowed head first. The heron will throw his prey up, catch it in his bill, and then swallow it head first. Grey herons breed in colonies known as heronries, and breeding takes place in the spring. And this is a heron with French cuisine tastes. He's having a frog for breakfast. This bird is quite similar to the grey heron. It's called the black-headed heron for obvious reasons. He is smaller than the grey at 92 centimeters, but he has black on his head and all the way down his neck, and the rest of him is grey, but with this contrasting white underneath. He often feeds in shallow water too. He spears his fish or frogs with his long, sharp bill. He will also hunt well away from water and take large insects and small mammals and small birds. It will wait motionless for its prey or slowly stalk its victim. It will also follow the plough on the farmlands and catch disturbed grasshoppers. He also eats reptiles and amphibians. So very easy to confuse the grey and the black-headed heron, but if you study them carefully, you'll get to know the difference. This beautiful heron is the purple heron. The sun is catching him nicely, so he's in all his glory here. When it's dull, when the light is dull, then he just looks plain brown. His plumage is purple-brown and very pretty in the sunlight. It has slate grey wings, reddish-brown breast, black belly. Its flanks and scapula are reddish-purple. The scapula is here. These are his flanks, and they are reddish-purple. And this bird is crepuscular, if you remember from our talk on Tuesday. Crepuscular means that he's active just before sunrise and just after sunset. So it's not often seen during the day unless it's overcast. However, I have seen purple heron in bright sunlight because, as I've said before, these birds don't read the books and don't obey the rules of where they're supposed to be and when they're supposed to be there. It's all a matter of luck. And he also eats fish, small mammals, and amphibians like frogs. Now we're going to go on to the seagulls. Of course, there's no such thing really as a seagull. It's not a separate species at all. All seagulls are gulls, and all gulls are seagulls. And this particular one is a kelp gull, and he is between 56 and 60 centimeters. This is the kelp gull, as I said. It's white with black wings. The bill is yellow with a red dot underneath. The baby will pick on it, causing the mother to regurgitate to feed the chick. Now, that does sound a bit disgusting, but if you think human mothers will mash up their baby's food when they get to a certain age so that they can cope with it, and the same goes for baby gulls. They need to have mashed food, and that's the way they do it. So that baby will go and pick on mother's or father's red dot or orange dot and get the food that they need. Kelp gulls will feed in the open sea, in lagoons, along rocky and sandy shores, on mussels, snails, insect, crabs, frogs, fish, and cuttlefish. Sadly, they also predate on other birds' eggs and their chicks, especially those of the African penguin and the African black oyster catcher. So they can be rather naughty. Gulls are quite clever. If they find a nice shellfish like a mussel, they'll take it high up into the air, and go over a rocky section of the beach, and then they'll drop the mussel or the shellfish onto the rocks below and repeatedly do that until it breaks and they can get the flesh that's inside. Very clever. Now, you'll be forgiven for thinking that this is a different species of gull, but it's not. It's also a kelp gull, but it hasn't got its adult plumage yet. He is a juvenile. And here you can see some juveniles amongst the adults. This is at Strandfontein Harbour, near where I live. The fishermen have been cleaning their fish and throwing out the guts. And of course, the birds are going crazy to get a nice free meal there provided by the local fishermen. A smaller gull is the heart-lips gull. And if you want to know how to remember the name of this gull, put your hand on your heart and then on your lips. It's a heart-lips gull, and he is smaller, as I said, 36 to 38 centimeters. He's got grey wings, edged with black tips on the tail, and a red bill and red eyes. If he's breeding, he might have a pale lavender cap, but it's not always easy to see. Otherwise, it's just plain white and red legs. Looking similar to a gull are the terns, but terns are slender, lightly built birds with long forked tails, narrow wings, long bills, and relatively short legs, while gulls have a more upright stance and longer legs. And terns are found near the sea, rivers, or at wetlands, so you will see them at Strandfontein as well. This is a common tern. It's grey with a black crown and a white front. Can you remember where the front is? That's not the front. The front is here on its head, and it's got a black crown. This bird is a non-breeding bird, and when he is breeding, he'll have a red bill, but he's a migratory bird, so you are unlikely to see this bird in its breeding plumage here. Jennifer, if you see one with a red bill, you've got the common tern, because it's in your hemisphere that he breeds. He plunge dives to take prey. And he is 32 centimeters to 38 centimeters. This is also a tern, but bigger than the common tern. It is not migratory. It has a yellow bill and is white-fronted again. The front of its head is white. This one is non-breeding, so a bit spotted on the usually smooth white forehead. It breeds from March to October. The greater crested, it's called a greater crested tern. I don't think I told you that. And it used to be called a swift tern. It's got a lovely yellow bill. This one's got a feather in it. And it eats fish by plunge diving to a depth of up to 1 meter. And the food is usually swallowed in mid-air. Now, terns are often seen in, he's 46 to 50 centimeters. And they're often seen in large groups. And when you see a large group or flock of terns, have a careful look in case there are other types of tern amongst them, and not because they often mix with other terns as well. And if you don't look carefully, you might just dismiss it as one breed. Now we're going to talk about cormorants and darters. These birds are medium-sized, dark in color, and designed to swim after their prey. Remember, I told you on Tuesday that they have hooks at the end of their bills, and that helps them to catch hold of the slippery fish. This one is a reed cormorant, and he's normally found inland, near inland water, and he's 50 to 60 centimeters, not one of the biggest. He's mainly black, glossed green in the breeding season. The wing coverts are silvery, and he has a longish tail, a short head crest, and a red or yellow face patch. The bill is yellow and the eye is red. You do get some different breeds of cormorant like the Cape, which would have a blue eye. The reed cormorant can dive to considerable depths, but usually feeds in shallow water. It frequently brings prey to the surface, and it takes a wide variety of fish. And this one is a bigger cormorant, and he's the white-breasted cormorant, and he's 64 centimeters. And you see why he's called the white-breasted is because his breast is pure white, although the young birds will have the white going all the way down the belly as well, and it'll be sort of off-whitish. There's the hook at the end of his bill, and he can be found in seawater as well. He'll be in fresh or seawater. And you can see even with his webbed feet, he's able to perch. He eats fish, which when he dives in the sea, he will go, he'll be under for about 82 seconds. But in fresh water, it would be a lot less than that. And I see I have some finger trouble. I've come to the next bird already, the African darter. And he is 85 to 95 centimeters. Now, he's not a cormorant. He looks a little similar, but he's not a cormorant. He doesn't have the hook at the end of his bill. The male is mainly glossy black with white streaking. Females and immature birds are a bit browner. They're not quite so boldly colored. You might see a darter, an African darter at Strandfontein, but it's not likely. They like to be in places like Rondevlei. He's got a long, kinked neck, and it makes him look like a snake when he's swimming in the water, and you will often hear him referred to as the snake bird. It does not, and I've told you it doesn't have a hook at the end of its bill, but it spears its fish on its sharp bill, then throws it in the air, catches it in its bill, and swallows it head first. Now, there's an interesting thing about the African darter. Although he's often in the water, his feathers are not waterproof because they don't contain any oil. So because of this, he is less buoyant and so can dive very well. So that's the advantage of not having oil in his wings or his feathers. So after he's been diving, his feathers can become very waterlogged, and then he won't be able to fly, and so he has to dry them. So you will often see darters sitting along the waterside, spreading their wings and drying their feathers in the wind and the sun. Now, you will also see cormorants doing that because their feathers are also only slightly waterproof. They do have a little bit of oil in their feathers, so they also have this habit of spreading their wings in the sun and wind to dry them. That's so they can fly. They can't fly with wet feathers. Now, the next group of birds we are talking about are the ibises. This is a sacred ibis, and he is 90 centimeters. He's got long black legs for wading. He's got a bald black head and neck and a thick D-curved bill. The bill curves downwards. The white wings show a black rear border in flight. They look very pretty when they are flying. The eyes are brown with a dark red orbital ring. So you can't see that in the picture, but around the eye it will be red. Males and females are similar, but the juveniles look dirty. They haven't got this lovely clean white plumage. So when you see a dirty looking ibis, it doesn't mean to say that they have not been taking care of their feathers. It's just the color that the juveniles have until they get their adult plumage. You'll find them in wetlands, forests, and plains, and they feed as a group, prodding mud for food items, usually crustaceans. Most nest in trees, often with spoonbills and herons. They eat insects, worms, and crustaceans, mollusks, and other invertebrates, as well as various fish, frogs, reptiles, small mammals, and even carrion. Now, you might wonder why it's called a sacred ibis. The ancient Egyptians used to commonly mummify these birds as an offering to the god Thoth. Thoth's head was that of an ibis, and he was the ancient Egyptian god of wisdom and reason, and thus of truth, knowledge, learning and study, and writing and mathematics. The sacred ibis was considered the living incarnation of Thoth on earth. So do pay this bird a lot of respect. Familiar to most of us is this ibis with stout legs and a typical D-curved bill. The wing coverts are iridescent with a green or purple sheen. He is the hardy-dar ibis, and he is 76 centimeters. And of course, he's named because of his call, which sounds as if though he's calling out hardy-dar. And you usually hear him flying over in the mornings and the evenings when they return or when they go to or return from their roosting trees. It's not quite as dependent on water as some of the other ibises, but they are found near wetlands and often often in close proximity to humans, foraging in cultivated land and gardens. And we certainly have a lot of them around our garden. It probes in the soil for food. It eats earthworms, mollusks, and small reptiles. taking a water break. The glossy ibis just looks black at first sight. This is the glossy ibis, and it is 49 to 66 centimeters. Once again, these iridescent birds look beautiful in the sunlight, like this one, all beautiful and coppery. And it's the smaller of the three ibises that we've discussed. They also roost communally in large flocks with other species, herons as well. And glossy ibises feed in very shallow water and nest in freshwater or brackish wetlands. They show a preference for marshes at the margins of lakes and rivers, but can also be found at lagoons, floodplains, wet meadows, swamps, reservoirs, sewage ponds. That's why we see them. And prey includes adult larval insects, such as aquatic beetles, dragonflies, grasshoppers, crickets, and also snails and mussels. Occasionally fish and amphibians and lizards as well. So it's not a picky eater at all. Now, this beautiful bird is closely related to the ibis family. It's long-legged and it wades. Its body is predominantly white and the face, bill and legs are red. The bird can be easily identified by its uniquely spoon-shaped bill. You see, it looks like a spoon, and that's why it's called a spoonbill. This is an African spoonbill, and it is 75 to 90 centimeters. It likes shallow inland water, and it fishes for food by swinging its partly open bill from side to side, this bill acts like a scythe to catch fish and crustaceans. The African spoonbill's diet consists mainly of fish and aquatic invertebrates such as crustaceans, shellfish, insects, larvae, and mollusks. Now let's move on to flamingos and pelicans. Excuse me for a minute. Like ducks, they're also filter feeders. They eat algae. This is the greater flamingo, and he's 161 centimeters to 171. And remember, when we talk about greater and lesser, we are referring to size. So the greater flamingo, we're going to also talk about the lesser flamingo. The greater flamingo are the bigger of the two species. So they're both filter feeders. They eat algae, small seeds, tiny crustaceans like brine shrimp, and other plant and animals that live in the shallow waters. When they eat, they place their head upside down in the water with their bill pointed at its feet, and then it sweeps its head side to side using its tongue to pump water in and out of its bill. And then, of course, it traps the bits of food that it wants to eat in their lamellae, which we spoke about on Tuesday. Flamingos really are what they eat. Many plants produce natural red, yellow, or orange pigments, and these are called carotenoids. Carotenoids give carrots their orange flavor and turn ripe tomatoes red. They are also found in the microscopic algae that brine shrimp eats. As a flamingo dines on algae and brine shrimp, its body metabolizes the pigments, and that turns its feathers pink. So you'll see these ones, they're in their full adult plumage, and they've got the pink bill with the black at the tip, pink legs, pink on their wings. Otherwise, their feathers are white. Now, in this group, you can see they haven't all fully reached their adult plumage. So sometimes you might even see a flamingo that you don't even recognize because he's got no pink on him whatsoever. You will see quite a bit of black in the wings rather than the pink. So like these ones, you see the black, you can see the black tip on the bill, but the bill hasn't got the pink in it yet. This one has. And then these are the lesser flamingo. And they are 120 centimeters. Now, the lesser flamingo is much pinker than the greater flamingo, and its bill is much redder. It's blood red. It's also smaller than the greater flamingo, hence the name lesser, as we said before. And then we come to the great white pelican. He's 140 centimeters to 178 centimeters. It's a big bird. He's got long wings and they are powerful flyers and often travel in spectacular linear, circular, or V-formation groups. When they take off from the water, it looks magnificent, and they rise up into the air with the utmost grace. It's quite amazing. These birds often fish in groups. In unison, they dip their bills, creating a circle of open pouches ready to trap every fish in the area. Sometimes they do feed alone. Great white pelicans are not restricted to fish, however, and are often opportunistic foragers. They will eat the chicks of other birds and rob other birds of their prey. Now we're going to talk about grebes. And excuse my voice, people, I hope it's going to last until the end of this presentation. Like the other grebes, we are going, sorry, let me just get my place. There are 3 birds in the grebe family that you might find. And like the other grebes we are going to talk about, this bird has lobed feet. He is the little grebe, and he is only 20 centimeters. The little grebe is a small water bird with a pointed bill. The adult is predominantly dark above with its rich rufous color neck, cheeks and flanks, and bright yellow gape when it opens its mouth. It has a white spot on its cheek over there, which is quite distinctive. And of course, this lovely chestnut cheek. The rufous is replaced by a dirty brownish grey in non-breeding and juvenile birds, but mostly you will see them looking just like this beautiful creature. The little grebe is an excellent swimmer and diver, and it pursues its fish and aquatic invertebrate prey underwater. Like all grebes, it nests at the water's edge, since its legs are set quite far back on its body, so it doesn't actually walk very well. Then the wonderful thing about these grebes is that they carry their babies on their backs. There you can see the little chicks. They're very stripy and beautiful, and they're following their mum, and when they get tired or there's danger, they will clamber up onto their back. These aren't very clear pictures, but I just wanted to show you exactly what they do. So they clamber up, and then they settle down between her wings and under her feathers, and nice and safe from any danger, nice and cozy and warm on mum's back. Then the next in size is the black-necked grebe, and this one is 28 centimeters. It has ochre-colored plumage, which extends behind its eye and over its ear coverts. The rest of the upper parts, including the head, neck, and breast, are colored black to blackish brown, as you can see over there. The flanks are tawny rufous to maroon chestnut, and the abdomen is white. It has a red eye. Insects which make up the majority of this bird's diet are caught either on the surface of the water or when they are in flight. He dives to catch crustaceans, mollusks, tadpoles, and small frogs and fish. This grebe is often seen in big flocks or large colonies, especially when breeding, even when it's breeding. It will be in a group, or when it's not breeding, in a bigger group. Then this bird is the great crested grebe, and it is 50 centimeters. It's the biggest and largest, the largest member of the grebe family. It is an excellent swimmer and diver as well, and pursues its fish prey underwater. The adults are unmistakable with head and neck decorations. They're rather beautiful. And so is the chick. The young are distinctive because of their heads and striped black. Their heads and bodies are striped black and white. They lose these markings when they become adults. They feed mainly on fish, but also insects, crustaceans, frogs, and newts. Next group of birds are called rails, and this one is the red-knobbed coot. Note it's red knobs. It's 44 centimeters. This rail has lobed feet like the grebes. It's a black bird with a white frontal shield. That's called its frontal shield over there. And it's white all the way to the tip of its bill, with the red knobs and the red eye. When it's not breeding, these knobs won't be quite so red. You will still be able to see them, but they won't be as brightly colored as that. When they're not in their breeding season, you can see them in quite large groups. Otherwise, they'll be in pairs. And then when they are in pairs and they have got chicks, they become very territorial, and they'll defend their nests from all intruders. The nest is built by both parents, and it's a floating platform built on the water close to aquatic plants. They're mostly herbivorous. They feed on aquatic plants, consuming the stems and roots of the plants. As with various other birds, they will on occasion eat seeds, grains, and invertebrates. And here is a mother with her chicks. I do think she's looking rather lovingly at them. And as you can see, the chicks look quite different to the adults. Much fluffier and cuter, aren't they? This is the common moorhen, and it is 32 centimeters. It has long, widely spaced toes so that it can walk on water vegetation and the mud as well, balances on the mud, distributes its weight evenly. Males and females are similar, but males are a little bigger. The common moorhen is omnivorous and feeds while walking on plants or while floating on the water. It swims across the water to scoop up floating seeds and other materials from plants floating on the surface of the water. It can also dive to gather the seeds, leaves, and roots of aquatic plants. But on land, it walks with a high stepping gait and pecks at the ground like a chicken. It also eats algae, small fish, tadpoles, insects, berries, grass, snails, and worms. Its habitat ranges from farmland to grassland and wetlands. You could see them all over. And can you see the hidden bird? Here is our moorhen, and next to her, she has her youngster, still in its juvenile feathers, and so that it's very well camouflaged. You can barely see him. or her. And this is probably the prettiest bird that you will see at the Sewerage Works, or at the Nature Reserve, sorry. The African swamp hen is 40 to 46 centimeters. Quite a big bird, also with the widely spaced toes. This bird has a red frontal shield and a red bill, and he's got all these iridescent colors in his feathers, from purple to blue to green, white under the tail. This bird, you would have to look very carefully. Once you spot him, he's very clear, but he tends to disappear into those reeds if he sees that people are around staring at him. But you're pretty likely to see one at Strandfontein. He is usually solitary or in small groups, and he eats fish and frogs and plants as well, and sometimes will take other birds' eggs and their chicks. You can find him in freshwater and brackish ponds, marshes, swamps, slow-flowing rivers, and of course the settling ponds, where we will see him next Sunday. Now we're going to go and have a look at a few long-legged birds that wade or walk on beaches or on rocks. The first one is called a lapwing. Lapwing refers to the bird's slow wing beat. They have long, broad, rounded wings. Some species have crests, and some have wing spurs, but not the ones that we are talking about today. This is the blacksmith lapwing. It's black, white, and grey. Because of its black apron, as you can see here, he looks like he's got a black apron on. And also the noise of its call, which sounds like a hammer hitting an anvil, it's called the blacksmith lapwing. They run around scanning the area for small aquatic and terrestrial invertebrates to eat, which include insects, worms, dragonflies, nymphs, other insects, and larvae. Beetles and ants, mollusks and crustaceans, and occasionally some plant material. He's very protective of his young and will, I'll show you, he's 30 centimeters. I'll show you a picture here of one on the nest. That was a really lucky shot, because you can normally not find their nests, because as soon as they see a threat, they will move away from the nest. And as you can see, the eggs are very well camouflaged. He'll move away from the nest. He'll pretend to be injured, and then hope that the predator will chase him. And then as soon as the predator gets too close, he flies away, of course, far away from the nest, so that the predator doesn't go and catch his chicks or her chicks. Then another long-legged bird that we will talk about is the black-winged stilt. This is a white bird. Okay, let's just have a look at his name. Black-winged stilt, and 38 centimeters. Its name speaks for itself. It's got black wings. The rest of the body is white. The legs are long and red. And he has the longest legs of any bird in relation to its body in the world. It picks food from the surface of the water with its bill, and it feeds in shallow water, wading and catching its prey by sweeping its bill from side to side on or near the surface. It can also use his long bill to probe in the mud to get a morsel from the creatures that live below. And with its long legs, it can feed in deeper water than birds of the same size. And they very, very rarely swim. They eat crustaceans, small fish, tadpoles, and amphibian eggs. So he's called a stilt because it looks as if though he's walking on stilts, and a black-winged stilt because he has black wings. This is a pied avocet, and he's 42 centimeters. Just if you're trying to remember the name, think of an avocado pear, avocet. Pied means black and white. So he is a black and white bird, as you can see, very distinctive. They have long upturned bills and long blue-gray legs. They are nomadic, so it's a recurved bill, not a decurved bill. They're nomadic and partially migratory, moving in search of areas which have experienced recent rainfall. Generally prefers saline and temporary wetlands, as well as floodplains, salt marshes, and sewage works. They mainly eat crustaceans and insects. And they like to swim. And here you see a group of them swimming in the water. Another favorite of mine is the African black oyster catcher, and it is 40 centimeters. These birds used to be quite endangered in the past because they lay their eggs on the beach in just a little scrape, and in the years when 4x4s were allowed on the beaches, they would get destroyed. People walking on the beaches wouldn't see the eggs and would walk on them, and that caused them to become threatened. But there's been a lot of work done to conserve these birds and to protect them, and often when you go to beaches where they'll be cordoned off, and people would not be allowed to go to where they are nesting. And they always come back to the place where they were born to lay the next generation of eggs. So this is why if they find a place that's becoming too crowded for them, they won't go and look for a quieter beach. These birds are very clever. They use their bills like a tool, and they will get use it to probe the mussels off the rock, and then they'll also use their bills to open those mussels. Beautiful birds. They're red eye, jet black feathers, red eye, red bill, and red legs, the African black oyster catcher. I'm going to talk about two kingfishers, which you might be lucky enough to spot on the outing. This beautiful little bird, it's very tiny, is a 14 centimeter kingfisher. He's the malachite kingfisher. He's got a beautiful red bill, blue feathers, russet. Really, really pretty. And he perches he normally goes back to the same perch from which he fishes, and they usually fly low over the water. He sits upright, its tail pointed downwards, and then it drops suddenly with a splash and usually returns at once with a struggling captive. Large food items are beaten on the bow or rail, and small fish and insects are promptly swallowed. A fish is usually lifted and carried by its middle, but its position is changed sometimes by tossing it into the air before he catches it and swallows it head first. So he likes fish, also aquatic insects and crustaceans. Then this is a bigger kingfisher, and he's called a pied kingfisher because he's black and white, and he is 25 centimeters. The crest is neat and the upper parts are barred in black. The male has 2 stripes on the breast, but the female just 1. So you could say he has a collar and a belt, but she just has a collar. When perched, the pied kingfisher often bobs its head up and down and will sometimes raise its tail and flick it downwards. Unlike some kingfishers, it is quite gregarious, so you could see 5 or 6 or even more of them together, and they also roost together at night. He feeds on fish, although it will take crustaceans and large aquatic insects such as dragonflies. It usually hunts by hovering over the water to detect prey and diving vertically bill first to capture the fish. They're quite fascinating to watch. It can deal with prey without returning to a perch, often swallowing small prey while it's flying, and so can hunt over large water bodies or in estuaries that lack perches that are required by other kingfishers. Now, this is the male, and there you can see that he has a collar and a belt. That's how you tell the difference. The female just has the collar. And here's a picture of how he hovers when he is fishing. Very clever bird. Right, so we've covered 41 birds now. So have your pen and paper ready, and we're going to just quickly go through a few birds and see how many of you can get better than just the yellow-billed duck, as I did on my first round. Let's test your skills. This is a goose that is not a true goose. It has a patch on the eye and a spot on its chest. It holds a position in ancient history. What is its name? And if you know its name, its family name and its name, you will get 2 points. I think I've already given you the family name, so you've already got yourself a free point. It's an Egyptian goose. 2 points if you got the whole name. This is a bird with a shovel-like bill. The male has a yellow eye, and you can see his beautiful speculum and his white bar and blue wing. What is his name? 1 point for his surname, 1 point for his first name. Two points if you said Cape Shoveler. This is a bird that has yellow feet, white feathers, a black bill. We spoke about 2 different ones in this family. Which one is this? The one with the yellow feet. It's the little egret. 1 point for egret, 1 point for little. This one has a black bill, also long legs, and a fishing kind of bird. Black bill, head and neck, contrasting with the white throat. Black head and neck, white throat. What do we call this bird? Well done if you said it's a black-headed heron. If you got the heron part right, give yourself a point. Even if you got the wrong heron, you still got heron. This one swims underwater. He's got a hook at the end of his bill to catch the fish. He's all black. He has a red eye. This one you will only find near fresh water. He's a cormorant and a reed cormorant. 2 points. This bird has a white frontal shield, red on his head over here, and he is all black, or she. What is she called? She also swims with lobed feet. red-knobbed coot. 2 points. Another rail. It can walk on the wet vegetation with its widely spaced toes or on the mud. It has a red bill with a yellow tip. Otherwise, it's black with a bit of white edging. Likes to swim. Has a varied diet. It's the common moorhen. The common moorhen. And this beautiful bird with its many colors, its red frontal shield, red eye, purple in color, purple and green and blue, very iridescent, reddish legs, also walks with the widely spaced toes. It's the African swamp hen. African swamp hen. 1 point for African, 1 point for swamp hen. This bird has an orange dot that its chick picks at so that it can regurgitate. It's white, it has black wings, which I've been showing you in the picture, but I'm telling you he's got black wings and a yellow bill. He flies up in the air, drops his muscles so that they crack on the ground beneath him. He's a kelp gull, 2 points. And here is a little bird that's got lobed feet and is quite an excellent swimmer and diver. Has got this beautiful chestnut cheek and little white dot at the base of the bill. Loves to dive and sometimes carries babies on her back. I showed you pictures of the babies on the back. And her name is a little grebe. Little grebe. I'm sure everybody's going to get this one. These beautiful birds with their wonderful bills. They swim in groups and they trap the fish and then help each other get their catch. Of course, it is the great white pelican. 1 point for pelican, 2 if you got great white. I'm sure you're all going to get this one as well, but which one is it? These ones are about to take to the air. They are pink because of the food they eat. These are the greater flamingo. And there are 2 birds of the same species in this picture, or the same family name rather. And if you can get them both, you can have 3 points. One each for the first name and 1 for the surname, because they both have the surname. This is the smaller of the 2. They both have these D-curved bills and the long legs for wading in the water. The smaller one is the glossy ibis, and we have to respect the bigger one because he is sacred. He is a sacred ibis. 3 points if you got their first names and their surnames. And then here we have a whole group of these birds that have the recurved bills. They turn upwards. They're black and white. That's a cue for what their name should be, their first name, and what is their surname. there's a certain green fruit you should think of that will help you. Pied avocets. They are pied avocet. And here there are 3 different birds. Well, there are 4, but 2 are the same. These 2 are the same. And then we've had this one already, but you're going to get bonus points. We've had this one as well. We'll get bonus points as well if you can get them right on this try. Right. This one with the long legs, he's on stilts and he has black wings. He's a black-winged stilt. And this one and this one are red-billed teals. Do you see their chocolate and green cheeks and their red-billed teals? So it's 2 points for that one, 2 points for this one. And if you get pied avocet, you have 2 points. So you can get 6 points on this page. And thank you for listening, everybody.